All right, my son-in-law and my daughter's house is an older 1890s house. I don't know what it is, but it's an older house, and they have these verticals that are on up in their peaks. And my son-in-law needs 8 of these. They're about sewn a little under 6 inches long, and 3/8 on the ends, and that's about a 1 inch ball. Anyway, so I took that piece and modeled it, and I'm going to go into Aspire and show you a little bit about how that all fits together. And then the first thing I did is I come out here and I went out to the CNC machine. And this is my first cut, and it had it had all that, but I had put my model too not was too low. It was in the middle of the board. So the first cut gave me an idea that what was going on, and there's a couple other little artifacts in there that's kind of hosed up. But anyway, so then my second cut, I basically just took this little item, and then I mismilled it on both sides, and all I did is flipped it end for end. It was a single-sided, but I kind of treated it like a double-sided, and just let the end mill run on it. And this came out pretty good, but these balls are not an inch. They're only 3/4 of an inch thick, and I need them to be an inch. So, and then these were down here about a 1/4 inch, so I need those to be 3/8 down on the end. But anyway, so there's that. And this is the setup that I put in here. Basically, I just have a bunch of cam. They're cut with a laser, and so they're all the same size. And of course, you can cut them, with the CNC as well. But actually, it's a little faster if you cut them with the CNC. Or, anyway, let me go ahead and raise this up. And basically, all I need to do is take this block and put it in there, and then all the lower cams, they come up against the sides, and then the top cams go over the top. So that locks it all in good and tight, and all these other cans come in there, and so they hold it really well. And of course, this keeps it from coming up. So this is a great way. And of course, there's a 1/4 inch plywood that I've nailed down with pin nails, 23 gauge pin nails, and then they have the screw that goes down and holds it all down. So those kind of things. So these are my scraps that I had, that were basically for the trash, and I just cut them all the same size, and then so they fit inside the little square over there, so square fence. So whenever I'm ready to mill this, I just run the 2 tool paths, which is an 1/8 inch ball nose or a 1/4 inch ball nose, and then an 1/8 inch ball nose, and then I run them, and these have a flat spot on them so that all the sides come lining up, and then I just rotate the thing over and put it back in there. And what's nice about this setup is that all these other little toggles, they tighten up against the sides, and then this one holds it there, so it makes it easy to change your workpiece, and those screws to hold it down. And so I could do a bunch. I need to make 8 of these, so when I get the pattern laid out, then I'll do that. So that's all coming together pretty good. And let me go over here to what I'm kind of doing. And this is, of course, modeling on cheapo scrappo stuff. And then probably will use a piece of cedar just for the rot resistance of it. I want some white oak would be good as well. But anyway, let me go over here. And all right, I just had 3 more of those blocks. So they need to be 1 inch thick. So I glued 3 3/4 inch pieces, which gives me an inch, or 2 1/4 inches. So I figured I'd be able to cut it down the center and have a 1 inch block left over when I'm done with it. And so I just put that on and use some Tite Bond glue and glue it together. So that'll be glued up in the morning. So that'll give me 2 pieces of that. So I mean, that's still not quite enough, but that'll give me 2 blanks to experiment on. So there I go there. One thing I like about the Sharks is it doesn't do any homing. Homing's where you start at when you turn on your machine and you home it, and then you set your home. That's where home is. So right now, home is on the very top of this piece of wood at that point, And so, after I power it off, it'll be right there. So in the morning, I don't have to zero anything. It just basically will be exactly right where I need it to be. And as long as I hit the move button twice, that'll send it home to the right Z and everything, so everything's remembered, to where home is. So um, that's pretty sweet in that respect. All right, I'm working on a spindle detail. I kind of outlined a little bit out in the shop, but basically what I ended up doing was taking one of these spindles, and I started off with creating a scan on my scanner, a flatbed scanner, and I took this spindle and laid it on there and I scanned it. And that gave me basically all of the things that I wanted on there. And then what I did is I come over to this particular item. Let me go ahead and turn off the bitmaps and turn off the dimensions, turn on the bitmap layer. And I basically just brought that in off of a scan, in which gave me all of my deals. And then I basically drew a line. It's just a vector line that divided this in half. And then I did this and quartered it. So I put 2 lines in here, which basically quartered this. And then I zoomed in, and I took and did the bitmap outlay where I had it scanned the drawing, and it created the bitmap sections as far as drawing it. So, and I also drew rectangular boxes around the different sections and the height of where they fit on the ball from the center out. And then these are the other parts. And then with the drawing, I had the, let's see here, where are they at? Dimensions, sections, okay. Drawings, and this is the one that has the drawings that went around this, and of course I've rotated it, but I basically, after I did that, let me go ahead and turn that off real quick. And after I did that line that divided this down the center and this one down the center, then I took these boxes that were turned on with the sections, and I compiled that to where it fit into that. I did some node editing, so I cleaned it up and followed all the grooves and made these fit to the point where I have, this one here. Let me turn off the rest of them things there. And that gave me 2 rails, and I separated the 2 rails. I basically took that section, and then I mirrored it over to the right, and I bonded those 2, and I cleaned up my nodes and made everything nice and pretty. And then I mirrored that to this side so that I had one vector line that went all the way over here to this side here. And let me turn this level off here to see if I can get this to not show. Okay, there's your vector lines. And let me zoom out a little bit. And so I basically had this vector, which was, one line, and then I mirrored it over to the other side, and and then I did a 2 rail sweep on that, where I went over here and I went sweep between 2 rails, and I created this, which is like half of a deal. I should have probably made this a little bit almost like a full circle in there, but anyway, the first one came out and it did real well. So then it went between these 2 with this shape, and it created this little guy right here. Let me go back and turn that thing back on. And not quite that one. Let's turn this layer on here. And then I set my height, and I went in and I adjusted my height to the model. And at first it was just, I thought, well, I just want a 1/2 inch. And, of course, I'm just kind of playing around. I don't do a lot of 3D modeling. I made a little chess piece, but this was a little bit different. So anyway, so I got this, and then I resized it down to the size that fit. And then I, put that in there, and I got it about to the right size. And I set my file dimensions to 1 inch, which is from this point to the other side. That's a 1 inch ball, so that pretty well determines it. And it's 1 inch. And then this is the block of wood that I'm milling this all in. So after I resized all that and got that set up, then I came over here and I copied that over to this deal. Of course, I turned it. And this sheet right here now is set at the 1 inch, and that all those settings are good. And then I set my tool paths. I've got a 16-inch, 1/8 inch ball nose, which is like the rough cut. And then I got the 3/8, the 16th inch ball nose that's doing the finish cut. And it's going through there and it's cleaning it up. Now, what I have done is set in my model thickness. I had this down in here on the first one. This wasn't all the way to the top, and so that's why it didn't carve down in there. And a quick way of doing that was just to turn my tool paths on. Go over here to 3D view and turn my tool paths up and to look at where I'm at with that. And of course, let's go down here to preview. And so there we are here. I'm going to turn my tool paths back on. But anyway, that is where I was at there at that point. So let's go right here. And I'm still not satisfied that I have this exactly right. This will be the third deal, and I'm kind of keeping it. What I did is I did increase my model height. I went up here to my level. I went down here to the first one, which I basically just copied these and then baked them again. But I went down to this component right here, and I set my size. Right now, this one's set at about 0.7, which is a little higher. I want to carve this from both sides, and so that's kind of what I'm figuring. Before I had it at 0.5, which gave me a 1 inch ball, but I'm going for a 0.7, so it may not be perfectly round down in here. Not quite sure. So, I tried 5.5, 5.6 to get this to come in. But anyway, so I put my shape height right, and then I did the bake, and this is what I came up with. So, I've got these at that level there. Got my bitmap drawing, and turn this thing around a little bit. There's the front. And then we'll just look at it right here, but that's your 3 spirals in your sides. It's pretty cool looking. I've got my material black. It's just kind of that way. But anyway, so I'm kind of anxious to model that 1 inch piece out there to see where this comes out, and pretty good looking. But anyway, so far the project's coming to, to where it's looking pretty good, and, that kind of thing. So, of course, my tool paths on all 3 of them in my preview. So we'll preview all tool paths, and then we'll click close, go back over here to 3D view, and this is kind of what it should look like here. Yeah, so there we are there, and I'm hoping them will be wide enough so when they start carving from the other direction, then they'll probably be fairly round. So I did make these ends down here a little bit odd, but I'm doing a double dimension. I love to have a 3D, a 4th axis to turn these on, but I don't, and I've got to make 8 of them. So they're a little oblong shape, but I'm going to be flipping them and turning them from the other side. So I'm thinking that this next mill will catch these about right in here. So where this black in, it'll catch them about right in here. So hopefully this will be in the right angle, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, they came out pretty cool looking with just a 2-rail sweep, and I'm anxious to get them carved up and check it out. And love Aspire. I love the programming part. I love everything about it. It's just a joy to use, and that's kind of where we're at. So let's go ahead and turn this off right now.